Please listen carefully.
Welcome. Oh my goodness, can everybody hear me? It's really loud. I see why she was so blinded earlier. I can't really see you guys, but my name's Jessie Gehner, and I am an emergency doctor at Roanoke Memorial. I also work at Stonewall Jackson up in Lexington, which is a little 8-bed ER, and so I kind of get the best of both worlds. Today is this week is really, really special for me because it marks the 10-year anniversary of the first time that I found Roanoke, or rather, that Roanoke found me. And so 10 years ago, I was fresh out of college. Are my slides coming up? Maybe? No? No slides? Oh, okay. Well, that's all right. You guys will just miss out on a bunch of cool pictures, but maybe they'll come up at some point. But 10 years ago, I had just graduated college. I was a total nerd. I had done perfect in all my classes, and I had done all the things that I had to do to get into medical school, to be good enough to get into medical school. And in the meantime, I had put off a social life. I had put off really having much fun. And I always had loved the outdoors, and all of a sudden, when I was accepted to medical school, I got this really scary sense of confinement, and I kind of freaked out, and I deferred I was accepted to UK med school, and I said, I can't do it, and I said, I'm gonna have to put it off for a year. And I decided to thru hike the Appalachian Trail. I had always heard about it, and I thought, this is my chance before I go to prison, before I'm kind of locked up for 4 years learning all this stuff. And so everybody thought I was crazy. They thought I was making a horrible mistake. And I took off for Maine, which is where the northern terminus of the Appalachian Trail is. And my father decided to come with me. I was lucky enough to have that. And we started hiking south. And the Appalachian Trail generally takes about 6 months to hike from end to end. And I had just graduated college, so it was late May when we started, and our goal was to finish by Thanksgiving in Georgia. And the whole trail is 2,200 miles long, and it kind of just follows the backbone of the Appalachian Mountains. And during that time, that was the happiest I've ever been. I got to walk about 15 miles every day, carry everything I owned on my back. I slept in a hammock every night. I was getting to spend time with my dad, and we were really doing great. By the time I got near Roanoke, we had come about 1,400 miles, and we were just at the peak of our physical fitness. It was looking like we were going to be home for Thanksgiving, and then a minor tragedy happened. We had been over all kinds of just horrible terrain, climbing the White Mountains, hand over hand rock climbing with these big packs on, and forded a bunch of rivers up in Maine that we really had no business fording at that time of year. And all of that had worked out okay, but I was walking on a very smooth part of the trail up near Daleville, and I just caught my toe underneath a root. And my knee hyperextended, and my whole body went flying over the fixed lower leg, and I heard a sickening snap, and it just, I collapsed to the ground. And this was my first, so what I'm going to be talking about eventually, this is a long segue, but we have a wilderness medicine fellowship at Roanoke Memorial through Virginia Tech. And you guys probably haven't heard of wilderness medicine before, have you? Anybody heard of wilderness medicine out there? Okay, a couple people. So wilderness medicine is essentially practicing emergency medicine outside of the emergency room. And so rewind back to me laying there on the trail with my broken leg, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? My dad was a couple miles behind me, so I was all by myself. I had my big chunky Nokia phone from 2005 that we all used to have, and I'm laying there and I'm thinking, I don't know how far the road is, but I'm all alone. And so I tried to splint my leg with sticks and a bandana. I know how to do that much better now. And I kind of stood up on my trekking poles, and as soon as I stood up, my leg just collapsed out to the side, and I fell back down. I was like, this hike is done. This is, it's over. And I was so devastated because I felt like all my dreams had been ruined. I was supposed to hike this trail before I started school, and now I was a failure. And so, but this is where kind of the best thing that's ever happened to me in my whole life comes in. the EMTs came and got me, and they took me to Roanoke Memorial. And that was the first time that I ever saw that hospital. And they took excellent care of me there. I did have a really, really rough road to recovery because it was a bad injury. I had to be non-weight bearing for 3 months, and then really, really intense physical therapy to get where I could just walk again. I did some math and got really, really motivated, like almost bordering obsessive, like neurotic behavior. And I decided if I could get back on the trail by April, I could do the last 800 miles to Georgia before medical school started. And so I did some intense physical therapy, and I got back to Roanoke in April with a big brace on my leg, and my dad and I were able to make it to Springer Mountain. And I was just so thrilled. I got to see Roanoke again, and Roanoke just kept coming back to me, and I kept thinking about all the events that had happened, and medical school was looming, and I was really, really scared, and I knew I wanted medicine, but I didn't know how I was going to help people, what area of medicine I was going to go into, what sort of vision I had. But I had all this experience behind me now, and so I started at UK medical school, and really was a very reluctant medical student, all the time kind of thinking about the trail and wanting to get back outside and not wanting to sit and study all the time. And finally, I was inspired by a woman working at Everest Base Camp. She was an emergency doctor, and she worked out of a tent at Everest Base Camp and was their physician up there. And I said, that's what I want to do. That is the job I want. And I got more interested in emergency medicine and then the subspecialty of wilderness medicine. And I was approaching my graduation, looking through all the lists of training programs, and here I see again Virginia Tech Carilion in Roanoke, Virginia, and now they had an emergency medicine training program. And so, of course, I wrote a letter to them, I sent in my application, and even though I was kind of a mediocre medical student, I had a great story. I mean, who could say no to that story? I've been in your hospital, I was meant to be here. And so I'm so appreciative that they accepted me despite some of my deficiencies, and it turned out to be a wonderful training program. They turned me from this dirty, hippie thru hiker into a somewhat respectable doctor that's, I like to think, competent, I hope. I think I actually have maybe seen some of you in the emergency room before. But my story stuck with them, and I expressed to them at that time my desire to start a wilderness medicine program here. And we have so many wonderful outdoor activities in the Roanoke area, and I just thought all the programs are out west because we have the big mountains out west, but there's no wilderness medicine programs in the east that are sizable at all. And so they were willing to work with me with my vision and my hopes to start this program, and they allowed me to start a fellowship where it's a 1-year additional training to get wilderness medicine training. And so I just finished that fellowship. They gave me the opportunity to go to Everest Base Camp and do some research during my second year of residency, and we actually started a Nepali exchange program where young Nepali doctors come to the U.S. here to Roanoke, and they are exposed to our U.S. healthcare system. Emergency medicine is not a specialty over there, and so we kind of expose them to emergency medicine and prepare them should they apply to residency programs here, which for a lot of young Nepali doctors, that's their dream, is to get specialty training. And so we try to hook them up with some mentors so they can get some letters of recommendation, get some shadowing experience, and maybe make that a possibility for them. On the flip side of the exchange program, we are now going to take a yearly trip to Mount Everest Base Camp with medical students, PA students, residents, and we tour all the clinics up in the highlands there, and we get exposed to, I see a thumbs up. Are these my slides? Yay! Okay, we got them. Hey, you guys want to see pictures, right? You don't want to just hear me talk all the time. So let's go back just a little bit so you can see my x-rays and all this. So I love this quote, and this quote just kind of really brought it all into perspective. there's a crack in everything, and that's how the light gets in. And my traumatic experience of breaking my leg, people have much more horrible injuries and health problems than that, but what I thought was a horrible event turned out to be the very best thing that ever happened to me in my entire life. And today I want to talk about how we can use our own personal traumas and bad things that happen to us to make a positive change in our community, in our careers, in our families. And I think that sometimes something that seems really horrible can be just the catalyst we need to get us where we need to be. So here's some pictures from the trail, my dad and I. I'm all happy when I started, and there I am at the halfway point, and there I am just before I break my leg. And so there are some of my awful x-rays taken at the Roanoke Memorial, and there's the day that I started back with my brace on my knee. And here we are at Springer, we finished, yay. And I mentioned that I was kind of a reluctant medical student. I kind of took a year off during medical school too and went to India for a couple months and joined a band for a couple months. And then I came back to medical school because I decided I can be an emergency doctor if they'll let me do wilderness medicine. So it all worked out. I'm a little ADD if you can't tell. And then, of course, Virginia Tech and Roanoke came back into my life and were just wonderful. Here's a picture that someone took of me looking very concerned during my residency. I'm probably going, oh my God, I don't know what's going on with them. And here's a picture from my research at Mount Everest, which was, I just can't thank my program enough for letting me do that, because that has opened up the door to all kinds of opportunities with my Nepali exchange program, and now getting to be a teacher over there. Here's some pictures from the fellowship, and this is what I'm really wanting to get to now, because a lot of this conference has been about community and how can we improve our community, how can we improve the health of our community. A big mission of the Wilderness Medicine Fellowship is to do free public education on first aid, so that when people are out enjoying the woods, enjoying kayaking, all the outdoor activities that we have available here, so that they know how to keep themselves safe and how to prevent injuries from happening. But if an injury does happen, that they know the first steps to take to stabilize that injury and get help on the way. And so our goal is to make people feel safe enough that they can go on these adventures and help prevent those injuries in the first place. Here's a few pictures from the last trip we took to Nepal. That yellowish kind of picture in the middle is actually the emergency room at Everest Base Camp. It's just a big barrack tent. And that's one of my Nepali doctor friends that works up there. We also do, I'm big into education and educating people on how to manage their injuries, because there aren't emergency doctors everywhere. There's not enough. So we also take a trip to the Incan Andes on a yearly basis and teach these healthcare workers. You see the lady in the middle is a Peruvian lady from the city of Ollantaytambo. And she has no formal medical training, but she's in charge of the health care of all the people in her community. She provides vaccines to the children, provides basic first aid, provides antibiotics and things that they need, and she's just, brilliant with no formal education. But what we like to do to kind of supplement what these ladies already know how to do is we go in and we teach them some basic trauma management skills, because they're so far out that if a person does have a life-threatening bleed, that's usually what kills them before help arrives. So we try to teach them about tourniquets and some stabilization techniques that they can use until help can get there. I also, in my fellowship, got a chance to do ultramarathon race support, which was, that's not so much serving the community or really, making that big of a change, but it was really interesting to see those athletes, and that's a blister that's all filled up with sand. Those guys are crazy. They run 150 miles over the course of 5 days. Like, who does that? They need a doctor, they need a psychiatrist, but my other kind of project that I work on here, and really trying to give back to the folks that I understand, which are the dirty hippies out on the trail, is I do Appalachian Trail thru hiker research, and I look at their pack weight, their body weight, how many miles they're hiking a day, and what injuries they're getting, and what kind of steps we can take to educate them on how to prevent those hike-ending injuries. And so I'm in the data collection process for that right now. And then here's a few pictures from some of our free programs that we've done. We have a lecture series called Disrupting Natural Selection, which is open to the community. If you guys go to our Facebook page, the Wilderness Medicine Fellowship for Virginia Tech, you can learn more about it. But it's open to all ages, all levels of education, and that's where we teach a lot of those first aid skills to folks. So, I am just so incredibly blessed to be here, to be able to do a job that I love. Not a lot of people have that opportunity, and I really now have a strong desire to give back, and these are just a couple kind of freaky pictures from the emergency room. We found a black widow spider in the emergency room, and that's him in a urine cup after I caught him. This is a rattlesnake up on the Appalachian Trail. We do see our fair amount of snake envenomations, usually not deadly, but we see them. And then there's a picture of Roanoke Memorial and Stonewall Jackson, the small hospital that I work at. So what can you guys take away from this? I kind of have distilled it down to 5 things that this whole adventure taught me, and I think that anybody can take some bad event that's happened to them and use it for positive change and use it to help people going through the same trouble that you did. So a bad turn of events can open a doorway to wonderful opportunities, as you've seen with my story, and I'm sure there are some of you out in the audience that have similar stories. You never would have met the people and gone to the places that you've been if you hadn't been in that accident or lost that job, or a relationship ended. Sometimes it takes a bad turn of events to get you where you need to be. Suffering fosters empathy, and I think any bad event you go through, whether it's a physical trauma, a mental trauma, a particular challenge or disability that you may have, you are going to be so empathetic to people going through something similar, and nobody looking in from the outside could understand that person the way that you do. And I know prior to my injury, I was not incredibly sympathetic to people with pain. And I had a great deal of pain after my injury. I had to go to pain management. I wore fentanyl patches. I would get nerve blocks. It was just like this whole big ordeal. And before that, I had always thought, well, these people are just drug seekers. They're just, And once I had experienced that, I was much more empathetic to these folks. And I think it probably made me a better physician. A setback can be the catalyst for growth. I never really appreciated my physical abilities until they were taken away from me temporarily. And after that, I was more aggressive than ever with my training, and eventually trained to the point where I could get up to Everest Base Camp. And so I don't know that I ever would have done that if I hadn't realized how precious that skill of mine was to me. Vision and intention are the building blocks of your reality. This is a big part of my belief system, and I just think that for any dream that you have to really visualize the specifics of what you want. Before you can get what you want, you have to decide exactly what it is that you want, and visualize it down to the most minute detail, because you do create those things in reality once you visualize them. It gives you a chance to actually put all the logistics in motion for your plan or your dream to come true. When I came here for my interview, I was very nervous, like I am now, and I told my story, and I have no idea what I said to my program director, but at my graduation, he said, Jessie came and did the interview, and she just told me, she said, I am coming here and I am going to start a wilderness medicine program. And I never said those words to him. I was so intimidated. I wouldn't have said anything that forward, but that was what he heard, and that was what was in my mind, the whole time that I'm trying to get this position. So really believing that you can do something and seeing it in your mind's eye is so important. And this, I think, as we heard from Free earlier, as we've heard from the other speakers, I think everybody in this room is wanting to do good, and they're wanting to serve others, and they're wanting to be kind. And so you guys already have this down. But whenever you're undertaking a new task, taking on a new job, starting a new project, if the underlying theme is serving others and being kind to folks, you're doing the right thing. And you're going to succeed at that. You're going to find happiness through that. And if you're not doing those things, I feel like most of us kind of start to know pretty soon, and things don't typically go the way that they should. But if you're doing these things, you're doing it right. These are just some pictures of my loved ones. I'm a crazy animal lady, and I have cats and bulldogs. And this is a picture of my fiance and his son, who are my family, and my wonderful parents there on their porch in Kentucky. As you can see, they're kind of dirty hippies, too. So I come by it honestly. But if any of you are interested in learning more about wilderness medicine, if you'd like to attend one of our workshops, if I talked about some of my other international projects that I have, if something I said about that spoke to you or you have more interest in that, I'm always looking for new minds in on the projects, and I love to teach people, so please get a hold of me. And I hope I don't see any of you in the ER anytime soon, but if I do, please say hi, and we'll take care of you. So that's pretty much it. Are there any questions or comments or no? All right.